Guys, we got something today that we didn't expect to get. And Atlanta, it was an apology from Calvin Ridley. And if you've not had a chance to go check this out from the Players Tribune, if you've not had a chance to read it, I just suggest that you do. If you say, man, I don't care about Ridley, okay, well then don't. But I got to tell you, when this all went down, Mike and I, we were very disappointed in the fact that he let our team down. He let our city down, and he knows that. But we didn't hear anything from him, and then he got suspended, and now it's all kind of played out, and we know he's moving on to Jacksonville. But, Mike, what did you make of what you heard from Calvin Ridley in this piece? And, guys, it's from him, and it starts out literally with him admitting, I made the worst mistake of my life. I effed up. And I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. I made the worst mistake of my life by gambling on football.
It really seems like things overwhelmed Calvin at the time. Now, again, this is his recollection of how things went down, starting with a foot injury, which we were not aware of in 2020, where apparently once he got a second opinion, apparently he was playing with a broken foot.
Right.
And, again, now this is Calvin's side of the story. I mean, the organization, a trainer who's no longer with the organization may say otherwise, but we were unaware of that. His home was broken into. He was dealing with a lot of stuff, a lot of stresses. At the time, we were all blindsided by this, and the information which we got from people around the organization they were completely surprised as well. There was a game that was skipped, didn't make the England trip, and then all of a sudden the week of the played in the Dolphin game and the week of the Carolina game, literally within 24 hours of game time, he says he's out. And so at the time, we go with what we know, which is what the hell is going on here? It sounds like Calvin's flaking out. We've had him on the show half a dozen times. Engaging personality, super positive guy. We love having him on. So now to read all this and to hear what this man was going through, because at the time we go with what we know, didn't know this, and people are getting upset with me because we jumped to conclusions, and we'll talk more about mental health here in a second. But it was interesting to see Calvin be as completely open as you could be about everything going back to his childhood that he's been dealing with, but he still quit on the team, but now I understand why he quit on the team.
And that's the thing. I mean, listen, it doesn't make it right, but just like with everything we talk about, sometimes sorry matters. Sometimes I screwed up matters, and it won't change our outlook as far as where our team goes from here without Calvin Ridley, but I respect him a little bit more because at least this is about accountability. And, Mike, you know on this show we talk a lot about accountability. And when guys have the wherewithal to say, hey, I screwed up, as fans, we got to acknowledge that. Like, we can't just talk bad about these guys and be all on their, on their case when things are not going their way. But then when things are said that you say, oh, I wish this guy would say something. And then they do, we got to acknowledge it. So we're taking a few minutes today to say, Calvin Ridley, we wish you nothing but the best. We didn't know all the things. We knew some of it, but we didn't know all the things that were going on. And now that we do, it at least gives us an explanation. And that's all we, I think, as fans, Mike, want at the end of the day.
Look, and we get it. We have the full spectrum of fans, from fans who are as angry as we were to fans who are saying, look, he doesn't owe you anything. Look, it's all in your perspective how athletes are handled these days. The thing is, the umbrella of mental health, and mental health is a thing which we're all more, I think, aware of than we've ever been in this country. And it's difficult for me to maybe be as empathetic as others are, and I'm working on it, Carl. I'm just being perfectly transparent here.
Sure.
Because I do think sometimes there are people that have legitimate issues, and I think there's people, athletes, actors, that use this stuff as a cop-out. But as soon as you say mental health, that's it. All bets are off. You can't assail the person, and you can't say anything. And we learned with the Simone Biles thing, all the things she went through, it was hard for me at the time to wrap my head around how you only get to be on the Olympic stage every 4 years, and this is when everything overwhelmed you. Then later on, the story was explained, but I'm still working. I'm doing the best I can, folks. I'm trying to be as empathetic as I can. I just felt there's a time and a place, it used to be, where you could deal with a lot of things, and the first things first, yes, you want to make sure you're healthy and you're in the right place. But I still would like to think sometimes you could battle through adversity. Every case is individual and unique to itself. And we can expect someone to maybe be able to compartmentalize that, or is that now completely off the table? That's I guess where my old way of thinking is become now something which doesn't fly in cancel culture.
Do you think Falcon fans have any empathy here for Calvin Ridley? Do you think they do? Or do you think that most people are like, whatever, I don't care?
Well, I mean, I think people identify with the fans sometimes, and it's crazy. We had guys who were crying over Marcus Mariota. It's like,
That's
okay.
true. That's true.
But people identify, and if you have struggled with mental illness or someone you love, you're certainly more, like, it's you have an experience with it, a better experience than perhaps I do. And that's why you were more inclined to give Calvin the benefit of the doubt all the way back then, which I was not. And now, based on what Calvin put out there today in the Players Tribune, if that's the way things went down, you can understand he was dealing with a lot of stuff. And I appreciate him being as honest and open about it, so I can help to understand where he was at the time.
404-741-0929. It's our Solomon Brothers Diamond text line. Look, we have turned the page. We've got Drake London here. We've got Kyle Pitts. In this Players Tribune piece, he talks about Julio not being here and knowing that he's the number one guy. And, Mike, the part where he talks about being, playing hurt, playing with a broke foot.
See, we never knew that part of the whole thing. Now, again, I would love to know the organization. There was almost complete turnover, including the training staff, right, Beau? From back in that year, the last year of Dan Quinn, when Dan Quinn got fired, and Dimitroff as well.
Yeah, so anyways, if you've not had a chance to read it or check it out, we invite you to. Maybe it gives you a closure, as I think it did for Mike and I, with where we felt about Calvin Ridley. Because let's be honest, most of us just said, what an idiot. This guy just gambled on the game. He was bored. He's sitting around talking about mental health, and now he's doing this, and he didn't know it, any better. And then you hear all of this other stuff. Again, it doesn't make it right, but I do understand a little bit better.
But you got to say that the mental health aspect of what he was dealing with when he had to walk away from the Falcons mid-season is different from gambling, knowing that, as he said in the piece in the Players Tribune, you can't do it. He was just, he put the app on his phone, as he says, deposited $1,500, and he was going to do a parlay, and he said, I put the Falcons on it. I was just doing it to root for my boys. I didn't have any inside information. I wasn't even talking to anybody on the team at the time. He said he was totally off the grid. But he said that explains, at least that's his version, or that's his reasoning for why it went down.